BBC Radio 2 presents the golden age of British dance bands.
And that age was certainly made more golden by Jack Hylton.
It was the atmosphere. When that curtain went up and you heard that noise throb at the back, terrific. The atmosphere was really something, you know.
He knew what he wanted, and he knew what the public wanted. And that was the great thing, and that was why he was so successful.
Billy Ternant, Jack Hylton's deputy conductor and chief arranger from 1927 until the orchestra disbanded in 1940.
I'm not saying there hadn't been better bands over the world in those days, but as a show band, his was the greatest.
Which became an almost indispensable feature of Hylton's stage presentations from the earliest to the last days of the band. In those years between the wars, the Hylton organization, and it became an organization, grew in musical stature and in manpower from the small London band that he joined in 1919.
I met him at Queen's Hall roof.
Chappie D'Amato, who was the earliest member of that Hylton organization.
And I met Jack Hylton, who was second pianist there. And eventually he took over the band, and I was speaking to him, and he said, would you join me? And there was a saxophone player, and I suppose they were a rare animal in those days. And then he said, look, I'm putting a band in at Tons of Money, a show in the West End, and it's going to be a sort of dance band rather than a salon orchestra. Would you take charge of it and go ahead? And Mrs. Hylton, then, Ennis Parks, had written a number called Evergreen Eve. And we were playing there one afternoon, and I thought, I don't know, I think I'll get up and sing this one. So I sang Evergreen Eve, and everybody sort of gasped. And after a while, that was in.
And it would have been justice if Chappie D'Amato had sung it when the band recorded the song in early 1922. Still, it was flattering to know that his replacement was the bass baritone Peter Dawson.
Evergreen Eve, Evergreen Eve, the tales that you tell me, you make me believe. You call them poet man, but instead you call them to thousands and thousands of men. Your little game is just the same. A spell around once you sow the weave. We have food for you after all. You're so clever, my evergreen Eve.
By the mid-1920s, the organization was much larger. There was the Hylton Band proper, and he was booking bands into several venues, among them the Kit Kat Club. Billy Ternant was in that Kit Kat band, and he began arranging for the full Hylton Orchestra, which he eventually joined in 1927, along with Jack Jackson. They were pretty hectic days.
Of course, we were making records for EMI, and we had to go out to Hayes. We were playing in a theatre. Then we'd have to go to the Kit Kat Club. Then we'd have to run over to the Piccadilly Hotel and play for another hour, and then back again to the Kit Kat Club to finish. So really speaking, if you can imagine about 16 musicians dashing across Piccadilly with their instruments under their arm, no cases. We hadn't time to put the instruments in the cases. So that'll tell you. But nevertheless, we enjoyed every minute of it. Very shortly after that, we had to do a continental tour. At that particular time in Berlin, there were some beautiful tunes came out. So Jack Hylton had one given to him called I Kiss Your Hand, Madame. And that was the first symphonic arrangement that Hylton's band ever did, which was I Kiss Your Hand, Madame, and recorded in Berlin. And I think I did the thing, knocked the thing off in about, and I had to copy the parts myself. 6 hours at the most.
I'll kiss your little hand, madame, and dream about your lips. You see, I'm so gallant, madame, on such a night as this. And may I have your heart, madame, with all its sympathy. If you will put your trust in me, how happy I will always be. And then I'll kiss your lips, madame, and hold your little hand. Your trust in me, how happy I will always be.
I Kiss Your Hand, Madame, and the voice of Sam Browne, who made so many records with Hylton in the early years. Talk to musicians, historians, collectors, the general public, and without exception, the comment is, Jack Hylton? He was the pioneer, Britain's greatest stage band. It won a reputation for its lavish production numbers, backed, of course, by the ability of the musicians like Jackson and Poggy Pogson. From the earliest times, Hylton planned his extravagant presentations with great care, as Poggy remembers.
We used to have set pieces, you see. And I remember we had one thing called Somewhere in Sahara. It was a camel and a donkey and stuff behind the scenes, and the curtains used to pass at the back, and the band used to be on the rostrum, and that used to pass, and the Eastern scene used to come in the middle, and it was a number, it's a production, you see. But I remember the number before Somewhere in Sahara in this particular time was called Am I Wasting My Time by You Mind? And it was sung by Hylton, Hugo Rignold, and Billy Ternant, you see. So they were down there singing, and at the back we could hear, oh, you whack, you see, screech, and where the camel was getting the air, and the donkey was getting the stick while they got him in position. Suddenly, down the middle of the stage, there was a trickle, and it got finally into the hot footlights, and it went up. Well, the absolute pandemonium went on. Never did it again.
If these spectacular productions, which worked or didn't, appealed to the public, to the connoisseurs, it was the band's high musical standards, especially in the jazz field.
Jack was never, in those days, very keen himself on jazz, though the musicians were. But the Hylton Band at times came very much nearer to playing real jazz than anybody had reason to expect.
So recalls Toni Clark, a friend of Hylton's in later years and an authority on his music. In fact, as early as 1927, a section of the Hylton Orchestra made a record that today fetches a considerable price for the original 78. Jackson, Pogson, Ternant, Chappie D'Amato, Hugo Rignold, Lou Davies, Harry Robbins, and Arthur Young were all involved in this impression of Red Nichols' 5 pennies called Grieving for You. Small masterpiece from 1927, Grieving for You. A little later, other jazz-orientated players came into the Hylton Band, among them pianist Billy Munn.
Well, the influx of 29 in my group, we're all jazzmen, we're all crazy about jazz. And after the visit of Louis Armstrong to London and Ellington's visit, these offices had an impact on the audiences of the period, and we started putting in more jazz numbers. And one of our best numbers was Stage Arrangement of Chinatown, which was a joint effort between Bill Ternant and myself. We played a singing stage. It was one of our bright numbers, you know. We always have to have one sort of bright, tiger, raggish, jazz-oriented fasty for a stage show. And this Chinatown was recorded one day on HMV, among a lot of other things, and it is an extremely good record. And it's a pity it's never been issued. Chinatown My Chinatown.
Chinatown My Chinatown, another collector's piece and a still unissued Hylton recording. Meanwhile, in the symphonic field, Billy Ternant had created this arrangement, still considered one of the band's best, Handsome Gigolo. The vocal trio, Hylton himself, Ternant, and Hugo Rignold.
Handsome gigolo, dressed up all for show. What a wasted life you're leading. Dancing till the dawn, youth and future gone. Love will pass you by unheeding. Just a soul on fire, to the highest fire. Cast off when they tire tomorrow. Friends may come, but they'll go, leaving handsome gigolo, the heart that breaks with sorrow.
Jack Hylton, the showman, always sought and often created publicity for himself and the orchestra. The story is a legion of his efforts and successes. One concerns a song written by Lawrence Wright, the well-known music publisher, supposedly on board ship en route to America. It was sent by wireless telegraph to Jack Hylton in London and Paul Whiteman in New York, so that both could present it to the world simultaneously. A nice publicity idea which made the headlines and made a hit of the song Shepherd of the Hills.
And thereby hangs another tale about this,
which Chappie D'Amato is never likely to forget.
It was such a success, this number of Shepherd of the Hills, with a very nice little melody, memorable sort of melody, caught on very well indeed, and we went along to record it. And Jack was picking me up at Hounslow in his Hispano Suiza. Anyhow, by the time I got to Hounslow that morning, it was very foggy. Very foggy. And there was an awful hold-up. And I couldn't see Jack's car anywhere. And I kept on saying, I wonder where he is, wonder where he is. And suddenly I heard an ambulance coming. We went towards the sound of the ambulance. I was with another chap, I can't remember who it was. And I suddenly saw Jack's car upside down in a ditch. And I went over, and there was Jack lying in the ditch, covered in blood, and I really thought he was dying. Anyhow, he turned to me and said, I'm going to hospital, Chappie. If I've been rude to any of the boys, tell them I didn't mean it. And he really, it was a terrible moment for me. I really thought it was the end. Anyhow, I went on to the session. I said, Jack's not coming for a while. He's been delayed. I'll take over. I was trembling, really. I felt like hell, you can imagine. And I made the recording. And I sang the number, Shepherd of the Hills.
Shepherd of the hills, I hear you calling. Shepherd of the hills, when twilight falls, I seem to picture the black sheep returning. I miss the fold and my poor heart is yearning for are the daffodils and crimson clover. By the rocks and rills I long to roam, back to the near ones and dear ones who love me. Shepherd of the hills, I'm coming home.
If it was some consolation for a near tragedy, Shepherd of the Hills became one, if not the biggest success that the band had. Another was a party piece, and it really was a party piece, that Leslie Saroni wrote and performed with the orchestra.
There was a young fellow named Skinner who once took a girl out to dinner. At 8:45, they sat down to dine. There was a young man of St. Paul's who once did a turn on the hose. His favorite trick was to stand on a stick. Oh, that was a cute little rhyme. Sing us another one, too.
And so on ad infinitum, a great audience participation number in the Hilton stage shows. The diary of the Hilton Band's activities in the 30s reads like a Bradshaw's timetable. The amount of work they got through, playing in London, touring the provinces, recording, and touring Europe, is unbelievable. But the spirit of the band remained buoyant, and it showed in the music.
Some of these days you miss me, honey. Some of these days be so lonely. You miss my hug, babe. You miss my kissing. You feel so lonesome, baby. You'll be lonely for me, all because you know, honey, babe, you've always had your way. And when you leave me, you know it's going to grieve me. You're gonna miss your big fat mama some of these days.
these days, the pianist doubling as vocalist, Billy Munn, who remembers the enthusiasm of all the players at this time.
You know, stage show can't do without a corner man, and we were all more or less corner men, so you had to feel very, very bad to not to turn up, because it never happened anyway. Everyone turned up. For every man a comic, this was the Hylton motto. Oh, that's only part one. The other motto is death is the only excuse.
In addition to the heavy schedule of tours and the work involved in special shows like Life Begins at Oxford Circus, which were built around the band, in 1935, Hylton and the players went into the film studios to make She Shall Have Music. No sooner was that commitment completed than his sights were set on taking the band to America. But it was not to be. The American Musicians' Union imposed a ban on the British players. It was a blow to Hylton because his records had won a large following in the United States. However, he was undaunted, as Toni Clark remembers.
So he then formed a band of American musicians, and they played for dancing at the Drake Hotel, Chicago, and also for commercial broadcasts. But he did have with him his vocalists and arrangers, Billy Ternant and Melly Wiersma, and the vocalists, Peggy Dale, Eve Beck, and Pat O'Malley. Meanwhile, the British band recorded the theme song from their film, She Shall Have Music, and in Pat's absence in America, this was sung on the record by Sam Costa.
She shall have music wherever she goes, with plenty of rhythm to tickle her toes. Wherever she goes, she shall have music. She shall have songbirds to sing her to sleep, with plenty of dream birds to count up the sheep, or wake or asleep. She shall have music, and while she's dreaming, I'll write a dream song. And I'll be hoping that it will be our theme song. She shall have church bells to ring out in rhyme, so we can go marching in honeymoon time. She shall have music wherever she goes.
In talking about the Rangers who went with Hylton to America, you heard Toni Clark mention Melly Wiersma. He was from Holland and was one of the continental musicians to be recruited into the Hylton organization. An excellent writer, he brought new colors to the repertoire, following in the footsteps of Leo Vauchon, who had scored many brilliant and advanced pieces earlier. Melly Wiersma's arrangement of You've Got the Wrong Rumba for the orchestra and Peggy Dell is as modern today as when it was written over 35 years ago.
#1. Down in Havana, they won the banner because they do the rumba #1. Why dance another way? There is no other way. If you do the credit, and don't you forget it, there is no better way. You'll never deny it after you try it. That's why I say you got the wrong rumba. You got the wrong rumba. You gotta heave it and shake it, give and take it. You'll never make it like that. You got the right angle, but it's the wrong angle. Although you've got the right movement, with improvement, you can do better than that. Stop. Better change your plan. Throw away your plan. You'll never get your man. You gotta learn to do the right rumba. Don't be a back number. You gotta heave it and shake it. You can't fake it. You'll never make it like that.
When Hylton returned from America, he brought back many new ideas and even some new scores that he'd commissioned from Fletcher Henderson, Benny Goodman's arranger. In the spring of 1939, he recorded them with Coleman Hawkins as guest solo saxophonist. For someone who had not been in earlier times keen on jazz, this was revealing, because those records are among the best big band British jazz of those years. Strutters Ball with Coleman Hawkins and the Jack Hylton Orchestra. Almost on the eve of the war, Jack Hylton embarked on what was to be his last continental tour. He returned to the Scala Berlin to an enthusiastic reception that had been the scene of so many previous successes. By now, the orchestra was even larger than it had been, with a battery of singers, as you'll hear in this opening announcement from Stuart Hibbard for a broadcast relay at the time, an historic recording from Jack Hylton's own private library.
We are taking you a long way to hear one of your favorite bands, which is playing tonight in Berlin. Jack Hylton and his band, with Dick Murphy, Wilbur Hall, Alice Mann, Peggy Dell, the Henderson twins, the Carson sisters, Joe Rossi, Maureen Potter, and June Marlowe. Now we're taking you over to the Scala Theatre, Berlin.
At the start of the war in 1939, Jack Hylton was asked to send a band to the BBC at Bristol, and the Hylton Orchestra, either conducted by Jack himself or by his deputy conductor, Billy Ternant, played regularly for dance sessions three or four times every week, and in the variety programs like Tommy Handley's Itmar, and of course Arthur Askey's Bandwagon. And during these first few months of the war, the Hylton Band was heard on the air and recording very much more than it had been for years in the past. In contrast to Henry Hall and Jack Payne in particular, through the years, a broadcast by the Hylton Band was a rather rare occasion. Hylton's fame came from his theatre appearances all over this country and, in fact, all over Europe.
And it was the theatre that occupied Jack Hylton's attention as an impresario in the post-war years. Perhaps we can link the two with part of a marvellously orchestrated selection from Cole Porter's show Anything Goes, with Hylton conducting an augmented orchestra. The singers are Pat O'Malley and the Continental star Eve Beck, who'd accompanied Hylton to America.
You're the top, you're the Coliseum, you're the top, you're the Louvre Museum, you're a melody from a symphony by Strauss, you're an Ascot bonnet, a Shakespeare sonnet, you're Mickey Mouse. You're the Nile, you're the Tower of Pisa, you're the smile on the Mona Lisa. I'm a worthless check, a total wreck, a flop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top.
You're the top. You're Mahatma Gandhi. You're the top. You're Napoleon Brandy. You're the purple light of a summer night in Spain. You're a National Gallery, you're Galbo's salary, you're cellophane. You're the grace of the brontosaurus. You're the pace of a Cochrane chorus. I'm a toy balloon that's fated soon to pop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top.
You're the top. It could have been an international exclamation of praise for the Jack Hylton Orchestra and singers for the supreme position they held as showmen in the 1930s. And helping me recall those golden years, Billy Ternant, Poggy Pogson, Chappie D'Amato, Billy Munn, and Toni Clark, as well as all the fine musicians and vocalists who were the Jack Hylton organization.
The Golden Age of British Dance Bands is compiled and introduced by Alan Dell. Additional research was by Chris Ellis and the production was by John Knight.